Good morning. The May 1st, 2024 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. As the board continues to meet in this hybrid fashion, we'll ask all folks who are participating in today's proceedings if you will please ensure that all your electronic devices are turned off or at a minimum placed on silent so you do not disrupt to today's proceedings. For those who are live with us, if there is an opportunity for you to speak and present to the board, you will be called, recognized. Please state your name, organization in which you're calling in from, and then begin with your testimony. At this time, I'll ask our amazing clerk, Ms. Celeste Amato, for any corrections, additions, and noted abstentions to today's agenda. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, everyone. We have the following changes and corrections to the agenda to note for this morning. We have one walk-on item this morning. It's SB 24-11614. This is a procurement item. It is an increase and renewal to contract 1801, pool maintenance, repair, and replacement, parts and service. This is an agreement with Patriot Pool Service, LLC. The board is requested to increase an equipment maintenance service contract with Patriot Pool Service, LLC. The period of this agreement will be from 4/15/2024 to 10/14/2024, and the amount of this increase in renewal is $400,000. The board approved an initial award and subsequent actions as shown in a contract summary that will be posted. This increase in first renewal will maintain the continuity of maintenance, repair, and chemical delivery services needed at numerous recreation and parks aquatic facilities throughout the city with one-year renewal option remaining. We also have one correction to note this morning to item SB 24-11561. This item is a resolution for removal of owner-occupied properties from the tax sale. The following language is being corrected for this item. The Law Department would like to issue the following. In the first paragraph of the resolution, the language will now read, if enrolled in a payment plan. That language should be deleted. Properties do not need to be enrolled in a payment plan to be removed from tax sale. The Law Department will resubmit a corrected version of this resolution to the clerk's office for formal signature after this meeting today. We also have the following protests and statements to note this morning for SB 24-11345, Department of Public Works, WC 1326, SC, I think we say SCADA, SCADA, thank you. DCS Water Facility Design, a protest has been received from Robert Fulton Dashiell on behalf of American Contracting and Environmental Services, Inc. And for SB 24-11561, for the Law Department, resolution of owner-occupied properties valued under $250,000 from 2024 tax sale. A statement of support was received from Aneka Namdi, Executive Director of the SOS Fund. We have the following deferrals and withdrawals to note this morning. SB 24-10700, DHCD. This is a pilot with the Hudson Valley Property Group for Westview Properties. This item is being withdrawn at the request of the agency. SB 24-11037, DHCD Fixed Pricing Policy Dispositions. This item is being deferred until June 5th, 2024 at the request of the President. And I also have a number of deferrals to read for two different dates, and I will read those in a list. For the following items are being deferred until May 15th. SB 24-11410, Position Creation for the Police Department. SB 24-11414, Creation of Positions for the Police Department. SB 24-11434, Position Creation for the State's Attorney's Office. SB 24-11411, Creation of Positions for the Police Department. SB 24-11413, Position Creation for the Police Department. SB 24-11409, Position Creations for the Police Department. And SB 24-11412, Position Creations for the Police Department. Again, these items are being deferred until May 15th at the request of the President. We also have the following items to note for deferral until June 5th, 2024. SB 24-11363, Creation of Positions for Finance. SB 24-11383, Position Abolishments for the Department of General Services, SB 24-11382, position abolishments and creations for the Department of General Services, SB 24-11431, abolishment and reclassifications for Public Works, SB 24-11381, position reclassification for the Department of General Services, SB 24-11432, position reclassifications for Recreation and Parks, SB 24-11430, position reclassifications for the Department of Public Works, SB 24-11364, reclassification of filled positions for the Fire Department, SB 24-11429, position reclassifications for the Pratt Library, SB 24-11402, position reclassifications for the Department of Housing, SB 24-11435, reclassification of vacant positions for the Mayor's Office, SB 24-11401, reclassifications of vacant positions for the Department of Housing, SB 24-11402, reclassification of vacant positions for the Department of Housing, and SB 24-11404, reclassifications of vacant positions for the Department of Housing. Again, these items are all being deferred until June 5th, 2024, at the request of the President. We have the following items on the non-routine agenda this morning. SB 24-11493, Department of Audits, Biennial Performance Audit for Baltimore City Fire Department for the fiscal years ending June 30, 2022 and June 30, 2021. SB 24-11505 for the Bureau of Budget Management, fiscal year 2025 Ordinance of Estimates. And I will also note for board members, we will need you to sign that document today after approval before leaving the room. SB 24-11481 for the Department of Planning, fiscal year 2025 through 2030 final CIP recommendations. SB 24-11268 for the Bureau of Procurement, unauthorized procurement with Vector Media Holding Corporation. SB 24-11345, Department of Public Works, WC 1326, SCADA DCS Water Facility Design. A protest has been received. SB 24-10738, Procurement, Emergency Procurement Waterworks with repair parts for LB Waters. SB 24-11561, Law Department, Resolution of Owner-Occupied Properties valued under $250,000 from 2024 tax sale. A statement of support has been received. And a walk-on item, SB 24-11614 for Bureau of Procurement, increase and renewal of Contract 1801, Pool Maintenance Repair and Replacement, Parts and Service Agreement with Patriot Pool Services, LLC. We have the following abstentions to note this morning. The Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott is abstaining on item SB 24-11438, Monsey, grant agreement with the Johns Hopkins Hospital, Inc. for HVIP. This is ARPA funded. And the Honorable President Nick Mosby is abstaining on SB 24-11505 for BBMR, Ordinance of Estimates Fiscal Year 2025. And on SB 24-11481, Department of Planning, Fiscal Year 2025 through 30, final CIP recommendations. The Honorable Comptroller Bill Henry is abstaining on all travel requests and travel reimbursements. City Solicitor Ebony Thompson has no abstentions to note this morning, and the Director of Public Works, Khalil Zaid, has no abstentions to note this morning. I also have the following no votes to record for routine agenda items this morning. The Honorable President Nick Mosby is voting no on the following. SB 24-11087, Grant Agreement, ARPA Subrecipient, Civic Works Incorporated. SB 24-11117, Grant Agreement, ARPA, Housing Authority of Baltimore City, North Central Park, Perkins 2 Infrastructure. SB 24-11003, Amendment 1, Grant Agreement, ARPA, Train Up, Helping Other People Through Empowerment Incorporated. SB 24-11088, Amendment 3, to Non-Construction Consultant Agreement between the City and Lessar Development Consultants. SB 24-11147, Amendment 1, ARPA Subgrant Agreement, Baltimore Civic Fund. SB 24-11438, Grant Agreement, the Johns Hopkins Hospital, Inc., HVIP ARPA. And SB 11243, Amendment 3, Project 1283-1805, Johnson, Merriman, and Thompson, Inc. This is an on-call for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and design services. Again, those items are no votes to be recorded for the Honorable President Nick Mosby. And Mr. President, that concludes our opening statement for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. At this time, I'll accept the motion to approve and adopt the opening statement.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The opening statement has now been adopted. I now would like to direct the board's attention to a memorandum from my office dated April 29, 2024, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections, additions, abstentions, and no votes that have been noted by our amazing clerk. I'll entertain a motion to approve all items contained in the routine agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The routine agenda has now been adopted. The first item on non-routine can be found on page 4, SB 2411493, Department of Audits. This is a request to note a biennial performance audit for the Baltimore City Fire Department for fiscal years ending in June 30th, 2021 and June 30th, 2022. On behalf of the Audit Department, we have
Is this one? Yep. Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mr. President and honorable members of the Board of Estimates. My name is Thandi Mount. I am the Deputy City Auditor. On behalf of the City Auditor, I am here to present you audit results from the Baltimore City Fire Department's biannual performance audit. Next slide, please. This is the agenda for today. We will go over audit objectives and scope, audit methodologies, background information, current and prior findings. At the end of my presentation, I will entertain any questions. Next slide. The audit's original focus was on fire inspection permit, which is part of the use and occupancy UNO permit. After we completed the preliminary planning process, we decided to include the annual fire inspection permit renewals. The primary objective is to evaluate whether the fire inspections permit issuance processes are efficient or not. The secondary objective is to follow up on the management implementation status of prior findings. The scope of our audit is fiscal years 2021 and 2022. The offices that we included in the audit are the Office of Fire Marshal and Mayor's Office of Emergency Management, MOEM. Next slide. The major risks that we covered in this audit are operational risk, data security risk, and information technology risk. Next slide. To achieve our audit objectives, we reviewed OFM policy manual. We interviewed key individuals from OFM to obtain understanding of their processes and procedures. Based on the available data, we tested efficiency of permits issuance process. Due to data limitation, we could not analyze causes of delays. We verified whether users in 3270 system are appropriate and whether they have appropriate access. We validated that 3270 system is periodically backed up. Also, we interviewed MOEM personnel to follow up on prior findings related to continuity of operation plans COOPs, and we visited MOEM and reviewed COOPs submitted by required agencies. Next slide. Before going into the finding, I will walk you through two processes that will help you understand the overall perspective of the finding. The first process is the fire inspection permit that is part of UNO. UNO applications are submitted in the ACDCCE permit system. Then zoning contacts the review. Once zoning approves the UNO permit, it is referred to OFM. OFM acknowledges the referral in the DACD system. OFM assigns inspector. Inspector performs inspection. Then a fire inspection permit is issued. Assigned inspector notes this in DACD system. Here we should note that multiple inspections could occur until OFM's violation notices are fully addressed by the businesses. Although fire issues their permit, UNO permit may not be issued until other respective agencies complete their reviews. Next slide. The second process is for the annual fire inspection permits. The city issues 30-day, 60-day, expired, and final notices. Before scheduling inspections, businesses must pay first. Then OFM conducts inspection and issues a fire permit. As noted before, multiple visits could occur until violation notices are fully addressed by businesses. Next slide. Based on the two processes that we went through, the major tasks and key dates are as follows. For UNO, the trigger date is the referral date from DHCD to BCFD. For annual fire inspection permits, the trigger is the payment date. And for both, key dates are assigned date to BCFD inspector, inspection start date, inspection completion date, and permit issue date. The turnaround times between these dates should be measured to monitor efficiency and identifying causes. Next slide. Data related to those key tasks are in three different systems: DHCD CCE system, 3270 system, legacy, which is a legacy system, and Fire Records Management System, FRMS. FRMS is BCFD's internal system, but supported by Baltimore City Information Technology, BCIT. Next slide. The finding is BCFD has not established benchmarks to compare the actual amount of time to complete an inspection and issue permit, and BCFD is not monitoring the efficiency of issuing annual and UNO fire inspection permits. As a result, BCFD cannot demonstrate that they are efficiently monitoring inspections and identifying areas to improve. Next slide. A cause of the issue is the available data is not sufficient to support the monitoring of the fire permit issuance process. Specifically, number one, data is not readily available. As stated before, key dates to measure efficiency and identifying causes of delays reside in three different systems. We were able to obtain the data from DHCD CCE permit system and BCIT's 3270 system. However, as reported in the Department of Planning Permits Review Audit, there are flaws in the DHCD system. We were not able to obtain the report with key milestone from FRMS. FRMS has key data including inspection start date, completion date, follow-up date, as well as permit issue date and mail date. To identify inefficiency, BCFD can research a cause of delay for individual permit. However, BCFD is unable to do an overall analysis of annual and UNO fire inspection permits issued in previous fiscal years. Number two, data is disjointed. Permit data can be manually traced from one system to another for individual permits. However, it is not possible to do an overall analysis of permit data across the multiple systems. This is because of inconsistent data formats. For example, business names and addresses in one system are not formatted the same as in the other systems. Third item is data is not reliable. Dates in all systems are manually entered. That is prone to human errors. Additionally, the fields are not locked down. This may result in known or unknown changes. There were approximately 15,000 permits for annual inspections for fiscal years 2022 and 2021. We found approximately 2,000 permits. 13% of data was incorrectly recorded. For example, April 31st, 2022. So we had to remove these permits from our analysis. Final item is data is not tracked by permit type nor business type in 3270 system. Tracking this information is important because turnaround times may be different based on business types and permit types. For example, it may take 2 weeks to complete to inspect a hospital, whereas a day to complete an inspection at a restaurant. Due to these data limitations, we were not able to make a conclusion to address the audit objective. However, we analyzed the available data. The data analysis excluded permits on hold, failed, and pending. We solely focused on the issued permits. This chart is the information about the number of permits issued in the last 3 fiscal years, and the trend is moving upward. Next slide. This chart is for fire inspection permits related to UNO. Our analysis measures the turnaround time from when a permit is referred to BCFD to when BCFD issues their permits. Most permits were issued within 30 days. However, there are significant numbers of permits that were issued after 120 days. Next slide. This chart is for annual fire inspection renewal permits. Our analysis measures the turnaround times from when BCFD receives payments to when BCFD issues annual renewal permits. Most permits were issued within 30 days. However, there are a significant number of permits that were issued after 120 days. Next slide. These are the statistics for both types of permits. The average number of days for both types of permits took about 2 months to be issued. Due to the data limitation, we were not able to do our analysis to identify causes of delays. The more representative statistic, which is median, shows better turnaround times. Next slide. For both annual and UNO fire inspection permits, we recommend the BCFD chief require OFM, establish expected turnaround times for key tasks, start tracking dates for key tasks in the respective systems, identify unique identifier to join data from significant systems, make sure these significant systems have controls to protect data integrity. Lastly, but not the least, most importantly, monitor efficiency and causes of delays. Next slide, please. The remaining slides are related to management implementation status of previously issued findings and recommendations. We covered 4 findings and recommendations from 2 audits. The first audit is for the fire watch programs, and the objective of the prior audit was to assess whether BCFD has adequate and effective policies and procedures to administer and operate the fire watch programs. Of the 3 prior findings and recommendations, 2 were not implemented and 1 was partially implemented. 2 were not implemented due to the transitioning to the new management. The new management was unaware of the findings and recommendations from the previous audit. They are working on the right now, and the anticipated implementation date is June 2024. We will follow up on these 2 findings and recommendations in the next round of audit, which will be in calendar year 2025. 1 was partially implemented. Annual review of special event service rate for fiscal year 2022 was completed and BOE approved it in May 2022. However, the subsequent annual review was not completed yet. The second follow-up audit is related to continuity of operation plans, COOP. The original audit was issued in 2018. This is the 3rd time that we did the follow-up. We concluded the recommendation was partially implemented. This is because not all required agencies submitted their COOPs plan to MOEM. In fiscal year 2028, 18 agencies were required to submit COOPs to MOEM. 3 agencies did not submit theirs. The 3 agencies are Office of the City Comptroller, Baltimore Police Department, Department of Public Works. MOED does not have authority to make these agencies accountable. As a result, we are adding 1 more recommendation to the city administrator to make sure all required agencies submit their COOP plans to MOEM timely. We will follow up on these findings and recommendations again in the next round of audit in calendar year 2025. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time and attention. Also, special thanks to BCFD team, BCIT, and DACD's cooperation extended to us during the course of the audit. Thank you, and I will take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mong. At this time, are there any questions or concerns from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, the audit will be noted. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The first item on our non-routine agenda this morning, Mr. Fire Chief, would you like to speak? I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Floor is
Thank you,
yours.
Mr. President. Good morning, President Mosby, Mayor Scott, Comptroller Henry, and honorable members of the board. My name is James Wallace. I'm the chief of the Baltimore City Fire Department. Joining me to my right is Deputy Chief Sean Eames, who is the Fire Marshal for the City of Baltimore. I just want to report that the department acknowledges receipt of the 2021-2022 biannual performance audit of the Fire Marshal's Office, as well as the audit of emergency management. We respectfully agree with the findings and wish to thank the audit team for all of their efforts. I want to further acknowledge the audit team's recommendations for improvement. As evidenced by their findings, the need for better data acquisition, organization, and overall management is a historical concern and one that we must and will address immediately. While recent actions, such as a change in executive-level oversight of the Fire Marshal's Office and comprehensive internal reviews have occurred, additional near-term actions can and will be taken. It is also my belief that the new Acela permitting system will provide the greatest resolution to the City of Baltimore by way of establishing continuity across one data management platform. This platform will not only streamline a number of operating systems, but will further assist in achieving the recommendations contained within page 8 of the audit report. With respect to the audit team's findings for the Office of Emergency Management, I would like to recognize the Office of Emergency Management, having been the emergency manager there during this particular time, for the team's extraordinary efforts to bring up to date the City of Baltimore's agency continuity of operations plans. We were able to move from one completed plan in 2020 to where we are today, which is a total of 18. And for that, I commend the staff, as well as their ongoing work collaborating with other agencies to make the city whole. This completes my response, sir, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you or the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chief. At this time, are there any questions or concerns for the chief? The inspector, is he going to speak?
He was just here to help
Just to
with
hear.
answer questions.
Any additional questions for fire department? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Auditor. The next item on today's non-routine agenda can be found on page 7, SB 2411505, Bureau of Budget Management and Research. This request is to note the recommended budget for ordinance of estimates for fiscal year 2025. On behalf of BBMR, we have
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Comptroller, members of the board. Laura Larson, City Budget Director. I'm here today to present the board with the proposed fiscal 25 ordinance of estimates and the proposed property tax rate ordinance. The proposed ordinance includes $3.5 billion for operating expenses among all funds, a decrease of $50.1 million or 1.4% compared to fiscal 24. It also includes $732.5 million of capital expenditures, a decrease of $99.3 million or 11.9% versus fiscal 24. The total combined budget is $4.2 billion, a 3.4% decrease in the fiscal 24 adopted budget. The proposed property tax ordinance maintains the city's real property tax rate at $2.248 per $100 of assessed value, and the personal property tax rate of $5.62 per $100 of assessed value. The preliminary budget was released to the Board of Estimates on April 1st. Since then, we have completed the charter requirements of the special meeting of the Board of Estimates with the cabinet members on April 17th. On April 17th, we also had our special BOE session for taxpayer night. The BOE recommended budget is approximately $147 million higher than the preliminary budget. The operating budget recommendation is $69.1 million higher than the preliminary budget, while the capital budget is $78.4 million higher than the preliminary budget. The increases in the operating budget are primarily driven by updates to agency grant budgets that more accurately reflect anticipated grant awards in fiscal 25. Agencies with notable changes included the Department of Housing and Community Development, the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood and Safety Engagement. The recommended budget also includes $20.7 million in appropriating prior and projected surpluses from highway user revenue to increase the PAYGO capital contribution in order to fund additional DOT capital projects. The increases in the capital budget include the HUR increase that I just mentioned, updates based off of final state budget actions, and updates regarding capital projects funded through PIMLICO, Local Impact Aid, and the Baltimore Casino. Note that the executive summary book contains details on the elements of the fiscal '25 budget plan and is being posted online at baltimorecity.gov/budget. The next step in the process is for the approved ordinance to be introduced at the City Council, which will happen this afternoon. BBMR is working on completing our work with our agency detailed budget publications and will deliver those documents to the City Council in the coming week. Council hearings on the budget will begin with an overview on May 16th and agency hearings starting on May 23rd. I ask your honorable board to approve these two proposed ordinances, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Madam Director. At this time, are there any questions or concerns for the Director of BBMR? Mr. Comptroller?
I'm sorry, when you said these two, are we taking up both the CIP and?
The ordinance of estimates is one item, and then the tax rate is
okay.
a separate item.
I'm sorry, it threw me because I only have the ordinance of estimates listed as a non-routine item. So,
I believe
okay.
the tax rate may have been was on the routine
Okay.
agenda.
Any questions? Hearing and seeing none, at this time, we don't vote on this. It will just be noted, and it will be read into the City Council this afternoon. Thank you so much,
Wonderful.
Madam
Thank you
Director. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on pages 165 through 167, SB 2411481, Department of Planning. This request is to approve the final capital improvement plan for the fiscal years of 25 through 30. On behalf of Planning, we have
My name is Chris Rahm, the Planning Director, President, Mayor, Controller, honorable members of the board. The Budget Director just presented a little bit of this. The city charter requires the Planning Commission to make recommendations for the six-year capital program, and at its March 7th, 2024, it approved the recommendations for the fiscal year 25 capital budget and the fiscal year 25 through 30 capital improvement program. It was presented to the board on April 17th. But since that time, a series of changes have been made to reflect the final state budget and other new information. The recommended capital budget is $78.4 million higher than the capital budget presented in the past, and notable changes include $30 million in state funds within Department of Housing and Community Development, reflecting state budget action, appropriating $30 million in Project Core for the Vacants Initiative, $20.7 million from PAYGO for transportation projects comprised of prior year and projected surplus HUR revenue, and $1,768,000 for 6 capital projects based on the recommendations in the final PIMLICO local impact aid. Remaining adjustments are a combination of adjustments to various projects to reflect final grant awards and other updates to non-general fund capital projects. And the total BOE recommended capital budget for fiscal year 25 is $732,457,157,000. For full details, you can go to planning, baltimorecity.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. At this time, are there any questions or concerns for the Planning Director on CIP?
No matching pink power tie?
No, I'm sorry.
All right.
Don't have a pink tie. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No additional questions or concerns? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Do we have to vote on the, let's just take a vote just in case, I'm not sure. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved, and we'll move on to the City Council. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 212, SB 2411268, the Department of Procurement by way of Department of Recs and Parks. The request is to approve an unauthorized payment with Vector Media Holding Corporation. On behalf of Procurement and Rec and Parks, we have
Pink power tie.
There you
I'll
go.
let you go. You have the pink line.
Good morning, Council President Mosby, Mayor Scott, Comptroller Hearing, and honorable board members. I'm Reginald Moore, Director of Baltimore City Rec and Parks. This was an unauthorized purchase. We was in the midst of transitioning leadership in our communication and marketing team, and the new team that we brought in was trying to push to get this advertisement out for our Charm City Lights that we held. And we have since trained our team, our new team, to make sure they understand that they have to get full authorization before they can move forward in executing these agreements in the future. So it was clearly oversight, but we've corrected that going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Director. And just for the record, what was the total amount?
Yeah, it's $12,000.
Thank you. Just thought that was an important number. Are there any questions or concerns for the director? Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Procurement Officer, Mr. CPO, nothing to add?
No, sir.
All right. The comptroller said you don't have your pink power tie on today either, so.
I didn't get the memo.
Yeah, he didn't get the memo or your tan suit. With that, we're going to take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. For those who are listening in and kind of perplexed between the solicitor and the comptroller, I keep hearing jokes about the mayor's suit and his address today, so, that's where we are.
They should leave the bear alone.
That's why you got two cookies.
The next item on our routine agenda can be found on pages 258 and 259, SB 2411-345, Department of Public Works. This request is to approve an award for Allen Myers, MD Incorporated for WC 1326, SCADA DCS, Water Facility Design. A protest was received from Robert Fulton DeShiel on behalf of American Contracting and Environmental Services. On behalf of DPW, we have.
Good morning, Mr. President, Comptroller, Mayor Scott. My name is Brandon Hairston, and I am an Assistant General Counsel at the Department of Public Works. This bid protest stems from water contract number 1326, and essentially when the original specs went out for this project, the required bid bond percentage was 2% via the bid bond form. However, to the notice to bidders, the bid bond percentage was 5%. This was an error, and after DPW realized this error, it issued an addendum, which stated that the bid bond percentage needed to be 5%. The reason that it needed to be 5% is because this is a state-funded project, and with state-funded projects, a 5% bid is required. Despite DPW issuing this addendum, it failed to change the original bid bond form in the bid books from the 2% to the 5%. DPW believes that this created a level of confusion, and in light of this confusion, the lowest bidder, Allen Myers, mistakenly included a 2% for its bid bond form. DPW deemed Allen Myers' mistake as a minor irregularity under the Baltimore City procurement regulations, which are binding and controlling in this matter. So, consequently, DPW contacted Allen Myers and requested that they cure this minor irregularity, which they did so within a 24-hour period. They presented the 5% required bid bond percentage. Pursuant to the procurement regulations under Roman numeral I, Section B, Paragraph 30, Subsection A minor irregularity is a failure to meet a requirement in a formal solicitation that is merely a matter of form, not substance, or is a defect or variation as to price, quantity, quality, or delivery that is trivial or inconsequential provision when contrasted with the total cost or scope of the procurement. A minor irregularity does not materially change the purpose or scope of the solicitation or undermine the competitive process by giving a responder an unfair advantage over others. The procurement regulations also provide examples of this. In subsection X, which states, submission of a defective bid security as a result of errors in the city's instructions. So although DPW did issue an addendum, which stated that the bid bond percentage needed to be 5%, we failed to change the bid bond form to reflect that 2% to 5%. So that is a mistake in our part, and due to that mistake, we believe that Allen Myers mistakenly included the 2% bid bond percentage. This board has the authority and the power to rule this mistake as a minor irregularity. Opposing counsel in its formal notice of protest stated that there is a number of Maryland State Contract Board of Appeal cases. But I'm here to tell you that that is merely persuasive authority and it is not binding on this board. Also looking at the facts of this case, they are distinguished from the cases cited by opposing counsel. In addition to that, opposing counsel cited that there was a change in funding, that there was funding from Baltimore County and Baltimore City. That is not the case. The funding came via EPA, which is state funding. The funding has never changed. I also wanted to highlight the fact that we did not re-advertise this project because generally when we re-advertise projects, they can take anywhere between 6 to 8 months. Our Water Facilities Division is in a dire need of a SCADA system, which is essential in terms of controlling, monitoring, and analyzing our industrial devices and processes so that we meet our drinking water filtration requirements. This is the first time that such an issue has arisen. It hasn't occurred before in terms of a minor irregularity. So essentially what we're going to do to change this is that we're going to confirm estimates with engineers and EPA to ensure that such a mistake does not happen. And at this point in time, I'm requesting that this honorable board rule this Allen Myers mistake as a minor irregularity, which you have the power to do, and to award Allen Myers the contract. This will be advantageous for taxpayers because it will essentially save them $752,000, and thus it is in the best interest of the city. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Counsel to DPW. Quick question. So I guess Allen is able to adhere to the 5% that is state required. Is that accurate?
Yes, they did. After we notified them, they submitted the bin bond percentage within 24 hours.
So
Mr. President.
basically their mistake, the city believes, the DPW believes, is just as a result of our inability to correct the form.
Yes, precisely.
Got it. At this time, are there any additional questions or concerns from members of the board for DPW before we go to the protester today? Hearing and seeing none. Anything from Mr. CPO? No, sir. Okay. Thank you so much. We might call you back up, Mr. Assistant Counsel.
Yes.
At
Thank
this
you,
time-
Mr. President.
Yes. At this time, we're going to hear from Mr. Robert Fulton DeShiel. He is representing American Contracting Environmental Services. Mr. DeShiel, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. President. Let me first say, my name is Robert Fulton DeShiel. I represent American Contracting and Environmental Services. With me today is Joe Gooden, the president of the company. Tyrus Hunter, who's director of marketing. I call him Mike Tyson. That's because he can explain that to you. Let me say, there's almost nothing that you were just told is true. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. Almost nothing that you were just told is true. There were 3 bidders. 2 of them submitted 5% bid bonds as required. There was no mistake in the city's form. The notice of letting indicated clearly the circumstances under which a 2% bid bond applied and those under which a 5% bid bond applied. By the way, EPA is a federal agency, not a state agency. And also, the reference to the contract being funded locally came from the agenda. I've just restated what was in the agenda today, so that may have been a mistake. But the notice of letting clearly said that if it's local funding, it's 2%. If it's state or federal funding, which it indicated, is 5%. That question was asked at the pre-bid meeting. And at the pre-bid meeting, every bidder, including Allen Myers, was told that it was a 5% bid bond required. 2 out of the 3 got it right. There was no mistake on the part of the city. Allen Myers made a mistake. It is not a minor irregularity. It does little good to have rules that are supposed to be applied consistently to all the bidders if you're not going to apply them consistently to all the bidders. The mistake here was on the part of Allen Myers. That is a unilateral mistake. It is not an excusable mistake. It is not a minor irregularity. The only purpose of a bid bond is for the owner to be able to enforce the terms of the bid in accordance with your requirements. Your requirement here was for a 5% bid bond. That meant that Allen Myers would be subject to paying the city in excess of $700,000 if they refused to enter into a contract, not $300,000, which is the product of a 2% bid bond. That is substantial. That's 60% more, 80% more. Maybe my math is off. Mr. Comptroller, you can get the math right. But in any event, it is not a minor irregularities. And not only that, and our position is not just supported by the cases that I referred to from MSBCA. It's supported by your own regulations. The regulations adopted by this board say failure to comply with bid security requirements shall be grounds for rejection. Doesn't say may, doesn't say might be, doesn't say excusable. It says shall be rejected, period. Shall be grounds for rejection. That's paragraph 4 under section 10 of the city procurement regulations. Failure to comply with bid security requirements shall be grounds for rejection. The argument is creative, but it's non-factual. There was no mistake here on the part of the city. Your notice of letting says what it always says. Your bid form says what it's always said. There's been no change in the city's bid form. You don't fill in the percentage. The percentage is filled in by the bidder, not in your form. You can put in 2%, 5%, whatever the requirement is. The requirement here was for a 5% bid bond. There's absolutely no justification for treating my client differently than the other bidders, than Alan Myers. Like I said, 2 got it right. Alan Myers made a mistake. That is Alan Myers' mistake. And if you're going to have rules, if the rules are going to mean something, then you've got to enforce them. Thank you.
At this time, are there any questions from members of the board? Mr. Comptroller?
Yeah, although I'm not sure that these questions are only for Mr. DeShiel. I guess I'm asking either Mr. DeShiel or DPW if anyone can produce a copy of the actual bid documents, given that we have a disagreement over what they say.
I have a copy of Mr. Comptroller, I have a copy of the notice of letting. I have a copy of the minutes from the
Where's Mr. Harrison?
pre-bid meeting.
No, I'm Mr. Assistant Counsel, General Counsel. Where? Oh, there he is. Yeah. I'm looking for the passage that you described as DPW inadvertently or incorrectly saying that it was a 2% bid bond requirement.
Yes.
Can you show me that?
Yes, I can.
Or, I'm sorry, can you show us that?
Yes, absolutely. If you look at this highlighted section right here where it says if you look at the middle of the page, it's going to have the 2% right there, Mr. President. So this was indeed an error on the city's part.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, we should have. You've seen it, yeah, that's right. You're his client, so he probably made sure he showed you that. Okay,
Could you show that to Mr. Sorry. Could you show that to Mr. DeShiel?
Yes.
Is that different than the form that you guys are talking about?
It's not different, but it doesn't say what the council says. It says that are hereby held and firmly bound unto the mayor and city council of Baltimore, Arizona in the amount of at least 2%. Well, that's true. It is at least 2% unless the actual amount is greater. Yeah. The actual amount that's stated in the notice of letting is 5%.
Okay, I'm following your train.
Yes.
Now. Okay, all right, I got it. I understand why you both can say what you're saying and feel 100% confident you're right.
And two of the bidders got it right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that same language has been in every bid bond that I've ever seen issued by the city of Baltimore in the last 35 years. And no one has come up with the interpretation that's been offered here today.
Yeah, real quick. Mr. Assistant Counsel, is that boilerplate language that we typically see?
Yes, it is.
All right. Mr. Comptroller.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Because the other question I had, I think, is probably more for the city solicitor, because I have not yet completed my longstanding legal education through finding out what the law department says I can do. The phrase "shall be grounds for rejection" is not the same as "must be rejected." It is grounds for means that if this is the case, the board can choose to reject it, but is not required to. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, but what I'm focused
Okay.
on is the definition of minor irregularity, and then also when we go back to the 2%, the boilerplate, if that was boilerplate, what was the purpose of issuing the addendum, and what does the addendum say?
So the boilerplate language was incorrect. It should have been 5%. When DPW reissued the addendum, it stated that the bid bond percentage needed to be 5% since this is a state-funded project. But despite that, we did not change the original bid bond form in the bid books, which still reflected the 2%. So despite council's assertions, DPW believes that there was still a level of confusion because Alan Myers did mistakenly submit the 2% bond.
And that is my understanding as well, because there's no purpose or reason for issuing an addendum if you did not feel that you made a mistake, right? I think
Yes.
that's, to me, that's the controlling portion here, because if you felt that it was clear, it would be no point for the city to issue an addendum. And I think that lines up with the train of thought where you thought that the city had legitimately made a mistake, because there would be no need to issue an addendum if you had not.
Yes, exactly.
But if there was a mistake, which there wasn't, and by the way, I haven't seen this addendum that made this correction. I'd like to see it as well. But if there was a mistake and the addendum corrected it, then why didn't Alan Myers see it? Why didn't they make the correction? The addendum are issued prior to project being bid. So that doesn't help them. That condemns them. That tells them through the addendum that something that you saw before has changed. That should point your attention to it, not away from it. It doesn't make any sense.
DPW committed a further error by not changing the original bid bond form, which remained at 2%, which still had a level of confusion. So again, this was a second error on the part of the city's instructions, and Alan Myers should not be penalized for it.
Okay, the comptroller still has the floor. So I believe you asked the solicitor a question, she answered the question, but then they had some supporting
Yeah.
discussion about it, but you still have the floor, Mr.
I
Comptroller.
think the only thing else that I would need to say was, I follow your train of logic, and I'm trying to figure out if there's a succinct way to say this. I think if for some reason American Contracting Environmental Services, if somehow we had gotten into this situation where American Contracting Environmental Services was actually the lower bid, but there was some reason why the DPW had chosen to go with Alan Myers anyway, when it was the higher bid. I think that raising the points that you're raising would give us grounds for why the board could reject the DPW's choice for whatever reason they chose the non-lower bid, and we would be able to use the points you have raised as grounds for rejection. But given that the Alan Myers bid is $750,000 less, it doesn't seem like it would be in the city's interest to choose to take advantage of the point you're raising. And Mike Tyson wants to say something. So
No, let me,
yeah.
I'll let him speak in a minute.
I'm sorry, after he said that, your actual name went out of my head, and now it's just in there.
Mr. Comptroller, the grounds for rejecting Alan Myers' bid is the integrity of the program. It's public confidence in the program that this board will, in fact, enforce its rules as they're written, and not because it may be convenient or even may be cost savings. I mean, we could go back to the days when there were no procurement rules, and you could just get in the back room and somebody just negotiate till you get a price that I'm willing to pay. And we could go back to the Spiro Agnew days. We could go back to the Dale Anderson days. We could go back to the time when there wasn't any such thing. But we've come beyond that, Mr. Comptroller. We've come to a point where there has to be a level playing field and the rules have to be enforced. That bid form that's supposedly so ambiguous has not changed in 30 years. In 30 years, it has said at least 2%. No one got it wrong except Alan Myers. Whiting and Turner didn't get it wrong. They've been a city contractor for over half a century. My client didn't get it wrong. We've done millions of dollars worth of work for the city. Alan Myers made a mistake. It is Alan Myers' mistake. We cannot jeopardize the integrity of the program for the benefit of Alan Myers, or even if it saves $700,000, in my opinion.
I respectfully disagree. This board adopted the Baltimore City Procurement Regulations, which identify an example of a minor irregularity, which again is a submission of a defective bid security as a result of errors in the city's instructions. Council, I believe that you identified there's some errors. I've also identified there's been some errors as well. And with that being said, it would not jeopardize the integrity or shake the public faith, because the board has adopted these procurement regulations. They define what a minor irregularity is, and the board has the power and authority to do so. And finally, I actually have the addendum for you right here, where you can see the mistake. Right here.
What does that?
It says, is the required amount 2% or 5%? The required amount is 5%.
That was a question asked during the pre-bid conference, and it was said 5%.
Yes, I was merely answering your question about the addendum, sir.
Yes. I never said there's a mistake. I'm saying there's no mistake. The only mistake on the part of the city, the only mistake was Alan Myers. Mr. President, that was a question that was asked during the pre-bid. Is it 2% or 5%? And the city correctly said it's 5%. Alan Myers was there. They understood English.
It doesn't change the fact that the original bid bond form was not changed from 2 to 5%. That is a second error that the city committed.
Okay. So everybody just take a step back. No, I mean, this is good. It's good public discourse. This is important work. We got Mike Tyson up here, you know. Just bring a little order.
What is your, please identify yourself.
My name is Tyrus Hunter. I'm with American Contract.
Mr. Hunter.
Tyrus Hunter.
Okay,
I have two little boys. My oldest is Tyson. My youngest is Michael.
Okay.
Well, so you did this to yourself, is what you're saying, okay.
Some quick comment relief. So I think, Madam Solicitor, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify in terms of whether we're going back, whether it's a mistake or not, that the city believed that there was a mistake, there's an addendum. And then when we're looking at the interpretation, I think what's key is the definition of a minor irregularity and DPW's interpretation of that. And DPW's interpretation of that is consistent with their actions of issuing an addendum that they thought and they believed that they had made a mistake. So with the Alan Myers issuing what they thought was a mistake based on what they had done originally wrong and to correct it, I think that falls under the definition of a minor irregularity, and we should be looking at if it's consistent with that definition of minor irregularity. And I think under these conditions and these set of circumstances that it does.
Let me respond, and this I think is going to be my last comment. The only purpose of bid security is to secure the bid. Any material defect in that cannot be minor, because that's the only purpose. It has no other purpose. It's not like a performance bond where it doesn't involve an element of responsibility. It's not a question of the contractor's pre-qualification. It's not a question of the contractor's. The only purpose of a bid bond is to secure the bid in the proper amount. A mistake in that can't be minor. If that's minor, then there's no need for a bid bond at all. There's no need for bid security at all. We don't disagree about what the definition of a minor irregularity is, but the notion that a material defect in a bid bond is a minor irregularity, I assure you, is a novel principle, one that this board has historically never adopted and is inconsistent with the law, practice, and just plain old common sense.
Thank you, Mr. Jushiel. Before we go to DPW, Mr. CPO, could you weigh in on the minor error discussion that we're having back and forth between law and the contractor?
Good morning, Adam Manny, your Chief Procurement Officer. I am in agreement with the council. This would be considered a minor irregularity. The difference between the 2% and the 5% was cured prior to the contract being awarded, which is the purpose of it. As opposing counsel has stated, the purpose of the bid bond is that after the contract is signed, if the business partner doesn't commence the work within 10 days, we can cancel it, and it's liquidated damages, which goes to the city, which covers our cost then of having to go through the process of putting it out again. Going through the procurement regulations, under bid security requirements, Section 10A1, all bid security forms shall have all blanks filled in containing the signature of the responder and the signature of the surety, and have a valid power of attorney form attached. Any deficiencies in either the bid bond or the power of attorney, if required, may be immediate grounds for response or rejection. So that's may. Since this was cured prior to the council awarding the contract, it doesn't change the material cost of the bids. If you added the cost of the bid bond into the lowest price, if that changed it so that the other company would then become the lowest price, then I would say yes, but it doesn't. There's a $750,000 difference. I would consider it a minor irregularity and continue forward. An award.
Thank you. Mr. Comptroller?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to clarify, we don't deposit the checks when we open bids. We just keep all the checks, and then when it's awarded, we keep the check for the bid that gets the award.
Yes, sir, depending.
And the other checks are just returned to the...
A bid
to
bond,
the bidder.
if it's a check, that's of course cash. It's the same thing as we hold it, as we continue, everything else is returned. The bid bond is an insurance policy. All bonds are basically insurance policies that say, if you don't do this, we're going to go pull your bond through the insurance company, and the insurance company will repay the city whatever that amount is, though it take whatever amount of time to get that done. But yes, if somebody uses a cashier's check or a personal check or whatever it is there, we would not cash that at all.
Okay.
We would hold on to it.
I'm sorry. Then is there a reason why we wouldn't, I'm just curious. What's the practical difference between the way we do things now and just waiting until we award it and saying, hey, we're going to need a bond from you for moving forward before you
The
sign?
bond being attached to the bid package shows that the company has the financial wherewithal and the
actually
insurance
do it,
backing
that
that
they
they can
secured the
actually
bond.
do the work.
Okay.
If we asked for it afterwards and they couldn't produce the bond, then it would put us in we wouldn't have the insurance if something happened, and we would have to go back out again after
When the
award.
2% is cheaper than the
But this way,
5%.
it's upfront and it's there, and it is also a guarantee to the city that if something happens, we can move forward.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. CPO.
Thank you.
I think before Mr. DeShiel, I think, did you have something to add before we went to the Chief Procurement Officer?
No, Mr. President. I don't have any further comments. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. Mr. DeShiel?
And this really may be my last comment.
It's fine.
Don't hold me
May
to
and
it.
I shall.
If the low bidder who present Alan Myers refused to enter a contract, and first of all, anything after the bid opening is irrelevant. That's after bid opening. Anybody can change their bid after bid opening. If Alan Myers were to refuse to enter a contract based upon its bond, the city would be entitled to collect $309,000. That's 2%. If Alan Myers refuses to execute a contract based upon the proper amount of the bid bond, the city would collect $772,000. That's a $400,000 difference. That is substantial. That is material when the only purpose of the bid bond is to secure entering the contract.
You've engaged.
Yes, sir. I just want to make a correction. Once the bids are received, the bidders cannot make a change to their bid, which was stated that you can change the bid, you can change your bid anytime prior to the solicitation closing date, but once the city receives it, you can't come in and change your bid. Additionally, since Alan Myers corrected the deficiency and provided a 5% bid bond prior to the award, which means if this board does award the contract and Alan Myers does not perform, the full amount of 5% would be forfeit. I just
Understood.
wanted to make that correction. Thank you.
But the cure is the correction to the bid, though, right?
Yes. The cure was that they provided a 5% bid bond instead of the 2%.
But that's changing the bid, no?
No, it's just the insurance that goes along with it. Unless they're passing on the extra cost of that 3% onto the city. And I haven't heard anywhere back or forth that they have. If they have, that might change it. If they're not changing that cost and there's no change to their bid and they've eaten the extra 3%, again, it's a minor irregularity. The city is covered with the full amount that was requested of the 5%
Understood. Okay.
prior to the award.
Are there any additional questions or concerns, members? Mr. DeShiel, any last?
Yeah, just for clarification, the bid is not just the bid amount. The bid is all of the documents required to be submitted with it. The change here was made after bid opening.
Well, technically, in that case, they lowered their bid because they paid more and they're not expecting us to reimburse them.
You should say that, all
Mr. President, and not as a prompt for council to add additional, but you know, now that I'm thinking this through the way that it's been described, technically they kind of lowered their bid afterwards because they increased the amount that they're spending on the bid bond, and they did not pass that cost on to the city. So they are now doing the work even cheaper than originally they were. They were already the low bidder, and now they've cut their cost by the potential difference, I guess, if you want to, the present value of the bid bond.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and I don't mean that as a complaint. I mean, I think that is just further reason to say that this is the better choice for the city, the better option.
May I say something?
Sure.
Joe Godin, American Contracting. Just want to clarify what the bid bond is. The bid bond secures the price. So there's a period of time between when the job's bid and when the job's awarded, and the bid bond guarantees that the contractor will do the job for that price before they enter into a contract. Doesn't change the cost. The cost of the contract does not go up or down based on 2% or 5%. So, you know, let's extrapolate this to a $100 million job, because you're setting a precedent here. So if you submit a $100 million bid, let's say the next bidder's $150 million, and you submitted a 2% bid bond, second bidder submitted a 5% bid bond. DPW calls you the next day and says, hey, you guys made a mistake in your bid bond, can you correct it? You're like, oh, I'm about to lose $50 million. You know what? I'm just gonna take a $2 million loss instead of a $5 million loss.
Wait, I'm sorry, I missed where you're taking the $50 million loss.
I'm saying if, let's say a bidder's just way low on a bid.
Okay.
100 million to 150 million, that's the gap between the second bidder. By calling him after the fact, you're giving the contractor the opportunity to judge whether I'm gonna accept my bid, I'm gonna honor my bid, or I'm not. That's why you have to have a bid bond that guarantees the price from the day of the bid to the contract award. That's the risk to the city, is that difference. In this case, it was 400,000, like Mr. DeShiel said. But you're setting a precedent for every bid that goes on forward. So if I'm a contractor, I'm just gonna submit a 2% bid bond for Baltimore City projects, because I can always change it after the fact.
But so, but if I followed that potential precedent, then let's say, oh no, I'm talking to him now. You already talked a lot. He didn't say anything while you were.
I'm just standing.
If following that out the way you're describing it, if a bidder puts in a 2% bond, the legal requirement is a 5% bond. Let's say that let's say there is nothing that the city thinks they did wrong that would have justified the 2% instead of the 5%. If the city didn't think they'd made a mistake, they wouldn't have called Alan Myers to say, we need a 2%.
That's not how the bidding process works. There's, you submit the bid on the day of the bid, and it has to be right.
The city solicitor would like.
You can't go back and say, hey, you made a mistake here, you made a mistake there. I mean, a minor irregularity cannot be applied to a bid bond. A bid bond is the document that secures your price. So like in COVID, basically during COVID, everything escalated like crazy. And so that bid bond secures that if you bid a job before COVID, then 3 months later it gets awarded, that contractor has to honor that price. He can't walk away from his bid. And that 2% and 5%, that's the amount they have to pay if they try and walk away from their bid. So you're setting a precedent that basically contractors can submit lesser bid bonds and just claim they made a mistake after the fact.
City solicitor.
Madam Solicitor?
Thank you. I think we need to look at this in conjunction with the mistake that the city thinks that they made. Because I think they're trying to parse it out here. Respectfully, I'm listening. You're saying that we're setting a precedent that anyone can go back and just say, I want to increase the bid bond amount. That's not what I believe happened in this situation. I believe that the city stated that they made a mistake to make Allen Myers think that 2% is what was required. And the addendum wasn't just to Allen Myers, it was an addendum to all bidders, and it said that it is in fact 5%. And in light of that mistake, that then triggers the minor irregularity, which is by him issuing the 2% and then changing it to the 5%, not because they just wanted to, but because the city made a mistake and felt they made a mistake, and it was evidenced by us issuing an addendum signifying that we made a mistake, not just to one bidder, but to everyone. And in light of looking at that mistake, then that becomes a minor irregularity. We are not saying that bid bonds, in essence, are a minor irregularity. We're saying in the fact that in conjunction with the mistake that the city made by making this bidder believe that it was 2% instead of 5%, in light of that mistake, by them correcting it, that is now a minor irregularity. That is DPW's interpretation, and that falls in line with the evidence that the city has done by attempting to correct that mistake by issuing an addendum. I think by looking at these separately, we're saying we're establishing a precedent. We're not establishing a precedent. We're saying that if the city makes a mistake and we attempt to correct that mistake for all bidders, which we did here, now looking at that, now that is a minor irregularity, not the bid bond in itself by you trying to switch it just arbitrarily. That's not a minor irregularity. So I think we have to look at everything that happened here.
All I'd respond to that is none of the other bidders made that mistake. So their assertion is not backed up by what the other bidders did.
But the assertion is backed up by what the city did, and that's what I think the board needs to look at. Does the city feel that they made a mistake so that anyone, just because you two didn't, did that induce one person from making a mistake, or could it have? So by them issuing an addendum to everyone, they are acknowledging that they felt they made a mistake. And it's not just...
That's before the bid. The addendum is before the bid. It's not after the bid.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is that they felt that that mistake was made. And they issued it to everyone. It wasn't like to just one person. It was, we acknowledged we made a mistake, and because we thought that there could have been a misunderstanding, then
Right.
we are
They
looking
issued
at
the
this
addendum,
and the minor
they still submitted the wrong
irregularity.
bid bond. They issued the addendum, they still submitted the wrong bid bond.
So, Madam Solicitor, I think we are pretty much clear on both sides. Just want to provide you guys an opportunity for a closing statement. Anything to close out? You could say no, and we'll be good with that.
We absolutely would.
I just want to clarify the point that Joe was trying to make with respect to giving the bidder 2 bites at the apple. If I leave $1 million on the table and my exposure under the bid bond is only $500,000, I'm not going to sign the contract because it saves me $500,000. That's what Joe was trying to say. That gives me 2 bites at the apple. I can either go forward and sign the contract and make the adjustment with the bid bond, which goes away the minute I sign the contract anyway, or if I left too much money on the table, I can say, no, I'm not going to sign the contract and because my bid bond was defective. That's 2 bites at the apple. You can't do that in competitive public bidding. particularly, and it's not, the city's mistake does not create a minor irregularity for the part of the bidder. The issue is, did the bidder make a mistake, and can bidder reasonably rely on so-called mistake on the city's part to justify its mistake? And I've heard no justification for that whatsoever. And I really am done now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think, one, it's a terrible mistake on behalf of DPW. Obviously, we all can accept and agree that, but that does not necessarily change the process. So I guess with that, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This bid is approved. Thank you so much for your advocacy and coming in today
Do we
to let us know.
If there's a irregularity, or is it just enough that we approve it?
Just we approve.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeShiel, and to your party. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 262, SB 2410738, Department of Public Works. This request is to approve an emergency procurement with LB Water Services Incorporated. On behalf of DPW, we have.
Welcome back.
It's good to be back. It's good to be on this side.
Are you sure about that?
I guess we'll see after this presentation, maybe.
I don't know.
We'll see. I guess we'll see.
Well, good luck with that.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Comptroller, members of the board. My name is Richard Luna, Deputy Director for the Department of Public Works. So the item before you is to note an emergency procurement with LB Waters to procure domestic size meter for residential customers. The emergency authorization was executed back in December of 2023. It was for a 6-month period. So the period covers December 14th, 23 to June 14th of this year. The total not to exceed amount for this item was $910,000. The reason DPW moved forward with this item in an emergency procurement process is because we were still awaiting a requisition of contract through the Bureau of Procurement. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on this item. I can defer to BOP.
Thank you, Mr. Luna. At this time, are there any additional questions or concerns? Mr. Luna, for the record, could you tell us the amount that we're talking about here?
Yes, it is a contract for $910,000.
Thank you so much. At this time, are there any questions or concerns? If not, we'll.
I guess technically for procurement.
You have a question for procurement?
Yeah.
Mr. CPO?
Good morning, sir.
Yes. No pink power tie, so.
Next week,
Okay,
next
all right.
meeting, I'm already going to get one. I think it looks sharp, Mr. Mayor. I'm on your side.
I'm sorry, I'm going to stay focused. So if I'm understanding DPW's explanation properly, they came to procurement last March, I think it was, asking for a contract to be put out for that, and they ended up pursuing the emergency authorization in December because from March to December, nothing happened.
I wouldn't say nothing happened.
Could you give us an idea of what the holdup was?
The workload, sir.
Okay.
At that time, just to remind the board, there were 3 people in the Bureau of Procurement who could do any solicitation of $50,000 and above. That number, and so the workload per contracting officer at that time was extremely high. It's still high, but based upon the transformation plans, those numbers are coming down, the needle's moving in the right direction.
Okay.
Additionally, this went through a couple of different things, and it went through a couple of different procurement officers. I have spoken with the staff on this, and we are in the final stages now of review and approval, and we expect a new solicitation to be issued in May.
So the solicitation will go out in May?
Yes, sir.
When do you expect is a
We
rough time
expect
for
to come back
wording?
to the board in August or September, hopefully, with final approval after the bid is in.
Okay, and is DPW going to be good with dealing with that gap between the emergency authorization contract running through mid-June?
Yes, sir.
They're good with that? Okay.
We'll have to take a look at our inventory stock, but if there's going to be a gap in being able to supply 5/8 meters or 1-inch meters, then we may potentially have to issue another EA just to cover that time period. But we'll take a look at our inventory stock and work with Bureau Procurement on that item.
Okay, if you could just let the board know how this issue is getting resolved prior to June 14th?
Yes,
Okay,
we do.
all right, thank you. Thank you both.
At this time, any additional questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, it's a note.
Mr. President, we
Got
note
it,
these
got it,
items.
got it. Thank you,
They're
Madam
Take
Clerk
back-
and Mr.
take back the
Comptroller.
movement.
All right. Next up, the next non-routine agenda item can be found on 123 SB 2411561. Law Department's request is to adopt resolution related to removal of properties from the tax sale. We're going to also hear from Ms. Nika Namdi, the Executive Director of the SOS Fund, after we hear from the Law Department. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Council President, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Comptroller, honorable members of the board. The Law Department is recommending approval of a resolution to remove any owner-occupied real property that is a full cash value, inclusive of buildings and land, of less than or equal to $250,000 from this year's tax sale. This is obviously something that is a big priority of the mayor, something we feel very strongly about. I want to also thank Councilwoman Ramos, who actually flagged this error. There was a drafting error in the resolution that was removed, and thank you to the clerk's office for handling that. And I also want to thank the SOS Fund. I know that they had submitted a statement in support, and I think that's why this was actually moved to the non-routine agenda, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Deputy Solicitor. Are there any questions or concerns from members of the board? At this time, we'll hear from the Executive Director of SOS, Ms. Nika Namdi. Floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Nika Namdi. I'm the Executive Director of the SOS Fund and the co-founder or founder of Fight Blight Be More. The SOS Fund is an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization that addresses systemic housing instability experienced by many people in Baltimore, but in particular, folks in red line communities. This instability has resulted in generations of residents losing their homes, thus denying them of the wealth building capacity of homeownership. The SOS Fund supports the removal of owner-occupied units from tax sale. We would love it if this board would include heirs properties in that where at least one heir resides in the home. We've taken on 134 clients since the beginning of this year and 76 in this month. People facing the real harsh reality of the tax sale policy. Removing owner-occupied properties from tax sale is a good first step. But that's all it is. The city has to take the next key steps in order to bring about meaningful change. The key steps include implementing payment plans, getting homeowners help with property tax credit applications. Many folks that are impacted by tax sale are over 70. The state does allow retroactive tax credit. So we literally almost make people homeless with tax sale every year when they could be getting very large property tax credits from the state, and the city loses nothing because the state pays their portion of the property taxes. There's also making sure that these environmental control board citations that are sending people to tax sale are actually accurate and not the result of people just being hateful to their neighbors, right? We've seen that on a number of occasions, particularly in neighborhoods that are gentrifying. Also making sure that home buyers, there are people who are buying houses in this city without using occupancy permits because the flippers have been able to get away with that. And that means they have a vacant building notice, and that means they get a $900 fine. And that means that even though they have paid their mortgage, perhaps, they paid their property taxes and their water bill, they can still end up on tax sale, right? And so it is a good move to remove the owner-occupied units. It's even better move to remove the heirs properties. But without the things that we need behind it, it just becomes people getting bills that are stacked up year over year that they're not able to handle. The other thing is this limiting it to assessed values of $250,000 is going to jam up folks that are in neighborhoods that are now starting to have their assessed values jump because of gentrification and because of speculation and because of all these other things. And so we have seen in the past clients that are owner occupied, that are elderly, that did not get the protection of being removed because the assessed values in their neighborhood had recently risen. And so we just ask that if we're going to be continuing to remove owner occupieds, great, let's add the heirs in, and also let's really move toward dismantling tax sale because it damages our city. Third-party collectors should not be making money off of people's poverty at all. And if we intend to be a truly equitable city, this is a policy that we really need to be working on. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to note and recognize Councilwoman Odette Ramos in the back. Do you have anything to add, Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mr. President, Honorable Board. Just want to thank Mr. Mayor and all of you for your continuing on this commitment to take homeowners out of tax sale. Just want to say ditto to what Ms. Nambi also said, and look forward to working with you all on our ongoing effort to make true reforms to the system. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. Thank you so much, Ms. Namdi, for coming in and providing some really important information to this board for future discussion. With that, the next item on the routine agenda can be found. It's a walk-on item from the Department of Recs and Parks. The request is to approve pool maintenance contract that is needed for 12 memorial pools during the summer season. On behalf of Recs and Parks, we have.
Good morning, Council President, Mayor Scott, Comptroller Henry, honorable board members. I am Reginald Moore, here in my pink tie today, representing. But basically what this walk-on is Patriot Pool has been a partner of ours for years, and they assist us in making sure that our pools continue to be prepared and operational by the time the season starts. And so what this walk-on asks us for this contract to be extended as the first of the 2 renewals that we do have. And with that, it's a $400,000 increase to their contract.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Are there any questions or concerns?
Do you have a list of the 12, is it 12 specific pools?
It's all of our neighborhood pools.
Oh,
yes,
it's
sir.
all the neighborhood pools. Okay.
Yes, sir, the neighborhood
Okay.
pools.
All right, thank you.
Memorial pools. Any additional questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none at this time, I entertain a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. As there's no new business.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I know that we have this item, but is Chief Lundy still here?
No, he left.
No, he
Yeah.
left.
He's right there.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, I thought that this issue, that this had been dealt with, that there was a compliance issue with the crime on this. I thought it was dealt with, but apparently it's not? Oh, okay. Yes, please.
Good morning, members of the board. Director Lundy on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Small and Minority Business Advocacy and Development. This is a contract that unfortunately the WBE subcontractor that was on the contract wasn't able to be utilized for any services during the life of the contract so far. We're aware of that. We're going to be contacting the prime to see if we can get another business added on that would be able to work for the scope of services. So this is an allocation of work issue. With the pools, we have a ton of needs, but we have not unfortunately had the needs that WBE that was on the contract could actually perform. So they haven't been able to be utilized. But going forward, we're going to try to get somebody else on that will be able to assist and ensure the pools are open.
Yeah, okay, thank you. This is, and my apologies, with one of the real logistical issues for walk-ons with us is we don't get a time necessarily to get fully briefed on the item before the board meeting, and so we have to do this. And I'm sorry, I thought that had been worked out, but it had not been fully explained. That's all it was.
No worries, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. You good? Okay, again, there be no new business before the desk of the board. We will adjourn. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Estimates will occur on Wednesday, May 15th at 9 a.m. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Baltimore, we absolutely love you.
Hi, TV 25. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Estimates bid opening for May 1st, 2024. We have a number of addenda to share today. First up, for the Bureau of Procurement, RFQ 549, managing, operating, and maintaining telecommunications systems for the Baltimore Convention Center. There is a new opening date for this item scheduled for May 15th, 2024. Also for Bureau of Procurement, RFQ 671, crime scene supplies. We have a new opening date for this item. That date is May 15th, 2024. And finally, one more for Bureau of Procurement, RFQ 554. This was originally RFQ 569 for peer support mobile application. This item will now also be opened on May 15th, 2024. And again, for Bureau of Procurement, RFQ 563, GFT signage. This item will be opened on May 15th, 2024. And our final item for this morning on the addenda of changes is Department of Public Works for SC 1005, Herring Run Sewer Shed Inflow and Infiltration Reduction Area B. This item will be opened on May 15th, 2024. So, first up, for our opening today, we have Department of Transportation, TR 24011, resurfacing highways at various locations northeast Sector 1.
Yep,
Are
so,
we looking at the same bid?
yes, we are.
24011?
Yep,
Great. Ready when you are.
okay. Up first, we have P. Flanagan and Sons, Inc. And that total is 4,278, 862.00.
That number was 4,278, 862.00.
That is correct.
Okay. That bidder was P. Flanagan and Sons Incorporated for $4,278,862.00.
Yep, and we have a bid bond.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Gray and Son, Inc. That total is 4,082, 830.00.
That number was 4,082, 830.00.
That is correct.
That bidder was Gray and Son Incorporated for $4,082,830.00. And we have a bid bond?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Up next, our final bidder is Manuel Lewis Construction Co., Inc. And that total is 3,513, 245.43.
That number was 3,513,245.43.
That is correct.
That was M. Louise Construction, correct? M. Louise Construction for $3,513,245.43.
Yep.
And
And we
we
have
have a
a
bid bond?
Yes, we do.
And that was our final of 3 bidders for TR 24011 resurfacing highways at various locations northeast Sector 1. Up next, we have for the Department of Transportation TR 24012 resurfacing highways at various locations northwest Sector 2. 24012?
Yes, that is correct.
Thanks. Just making sure we're opening the right pile.
Up first, we have P. Flanagan and Sons, Inc. That total is 3,979,404.00.
That number was 3,979,404.00.
That is correct.
That bidder was P. Flanagan and Sons, Inc. for $3,979,404.00. And there is a bid bond?
Yes, there is.
Great.
This one, because it's a little in pieces here.
Okay. Thanks. Right. Up next, we have Gray and Son, Inc. That total is 4,674,776.00.
That number was 4,674,776.00.
That is correct.
That bidder was Gray and Son Incorporated for $4,674,776.00. And there's a bid bond?
Yes, there is.
Thanks.
Our final bidder is M. Lewis Constructing. That total is 3,728,397.31.
That number was 3,728,397.31.
That is correct.
Okay, that bidder was M. Louise Construction for $3,728,397.31. And there is a bid bond.
Yes, there is.
Okay, that was the third and final bidder for TR 24012 resurfacing highways at various locations northwest Sector 2. Up next is TR 24013 for the Department of Transportation, resurfacing highways at various locations southwest Sector 3. Are we looking at 24013? Great.
Up first, we have P. Flanagan and Sons, Inc. That total is 4,294,812.00.
Okay, that's P. Flanagan and Sons, Inc. Oops, I forgot to read back, sorry. 4,294,812.00.
That is correct.
That bidder was P. Flanagan and Sons, Inc. for $4,294,812.00. And we have a bid bond.
Yes. Our second and final bidder is M. Lewis Construction. And that total is 3,625,418.38.
0.38.
Yes,
Okay, that number was 3,625,418.38.
that is correct.
Okay, that bidder was M. Louise Construction for $3,625,418.38. And we have a bid bond.
Yes, we do.
And is that our final?
Yep.
So that was our final of two bidders for TR 24013, resurfacing highways at various locations, Southwest Sector 3. Up next, for Department of Transportation, we have TR 24014, resurfacing highways at various locations, Southeast Sector 4. And those are 24014?
Yep. Thanks. All right, up first, we have P. Flanagan and Sons, Inc. That total is 4,257,132.00.
Okay, that number was 4,257,132.00.
That is correct.
That bidder was P. Flanagan and Sons, Inc. for $4,257,132.00. And we have a bid bond.
Yes, there is. Our second and final bidder is M. Louise Construction. That total is 3,551,006.41.
Okay, that number was 3,551,006.41.
That is correct.
That bidder was M. Louise Construction for $3,551,006.41. And we have a bid bond?
Yes, we do.
And that was our final of two bidders for
Yes, it
TR 24014, resurfacing highways at various locations, Southeast Sector 4. Up next, for the Department of Public Works, we have SC 982. This is for Eastern Avenue Pumping Station rehabilitation.
And we have no bid submitted.
We have no bid submitted. That seems like a bad thing. Okay. So again, that was SC 982, Eastern Avenue Pumping Station rehabilitation. At this time, no bids have been submitted or received. Up next, for Bureau of Procurement, we have RFQ 526, Utility Services. My spreadsheet indicates Part A, which means we're opening qualifications, not pricing today. And this means that we will only be sharing the names of those who have submitted their qualifications. This morning, you will not be hearing any prices.
All right, so up first, we have Edlin Electrical Exhibition Services of Maryland, Inc.
Okay?
And we have Smart City Networks.
And just those two?
Yep.
Okay, those submitters for qualifications for RFQ 526 are as follows: Edlin Electrical Exhibition Services of Maryland, Inc., and Smart City Networks. Up next, for the Bureau of Procurement, we have RFQ 542, Polymer for sludge dewatering. I hope we got a bid for this one. Up first, we have,
Polydyne Inc. And this is actually our only bidder.
okay. And do we have a number?
Oh, no, you're fine. Okay. An amount?
Oh.
Okay. Let's see.
It is a goods and services contract, so it could just have a unit price, I suppose.
The unit price is listed here
By the pound?
by the pound.
Does it look like just a unit, not a total?
No, there's no total, just as a
No,
unit price.
just a unit price.
Okay. This bid appears to only be offering us a unit price, which may be just fine. We are going to refer this to the agency for further review, but that submitter was Polydyne Incorporated, and that was our only bidder for RFQ 542. This was for polymer for sludge dewatering. Up next, we have RFQ 545, supply and delivery of U-channel signpost and accessories.
Okay. Thanks. We have one bidder, that is National Highway Products, Inc.
And is there a total for this one, or also unit
Yeah,
price?
there's a total. Yep, so that's this one, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So that total is 670,920.00.
Okay. That number was 670,920.00.
That is correct.
That bidder was National Highway Products, Inc. for $670,920.00. And that was our only bidder for RFQ 545, supply and delivery of U-channel signpost and accessories. Up next, for Bureau of Procurement, we have RFQ 548 for passenger bus/van transportation services. And it looks like we have a few bidders on this one. And does this appear to be a total? Do you guys know?
I think so. Let me see.
Take your time.
Yes, that's a total.
Are you saying a total too, Abby?
I am not. Oh, yep, okay. Yep. All right, so up first, we have DTS Worldwide Transportation. And that total is 4,866,858.00.
That number was 4,866,858.00.
That is correct.
And that was DTS Worldwide Transportation for $4,866,858.00.
Up next, we have Sevels Transportation, Inc. That total is 770,904.00.
That number is 770,904.00.
That is correct.
Okay. That bidder was Civils Transportation? Is that what we said?
Civils, yeah.
Civils Transportation Incorporated for $770,904.00.
Up next, we have American Limousines, Inc.
This one?
It's broken down, but there isn't a total. You're seeing 3 different totals, right?
Yeah, there's different totals.
Yeah.
Just looking at it, it doesn't seem to be. It seems to have these
Yeah, they don't have a full
different
total.
breakdowns for.
You guys don't see a total,
Yeah.
like the other ones?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will refer this one to the agency because we may only see unit pricing. So that bidder was American Limousines, Inc., and we're referring this one to the agency for a review. Did you page by page that one, Abby? I didn't even see it, okay.
Next one is.
Up next, we have Blue Heron Transportation LLC. This is looking similar as well,
This one too.
but let me double check. Yeah, this is similar to the other one.
That bidder was Blue Heron Transportation LLC, and similar situation, we don't see a clear total presented, so we will refer this one, well, we'll refer the whole bundle to the agency for review. And we'll be sharing a total since we don't see one clearly represented. And all 3 sets of eyes could not find it, so. Because sometimes it takes all 3 sets.
Thank you. All right. Up next, we have New Beginnings Charter and Bus. This is looking.
This one too?
Yep.
Okay.
This is broken down the same way.
Okay, we have another bid that doesn't present a clear total, so we will refer this to the agency for review along with the whole, all bids received for this transaction. So this is New Beginnings Charter and Bus, also submitting for RFQ 548, and I think we have one more bidder on our stack.
Yes.
Okay.
Our final bidder is Higher Ground Transportation Services. This is looking like it's the same thing.
Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, you don't, no totals?
No.
Okay. So, and our final bidder, Higher Ground Transportation Services, also, we don't have a clear total presented for this submission, so we will be referring this whole bundle to the Bureau of Procurement for a detailed review of the pricing that is presented. And those were our bidders for contract RFQ 548, passenger bus / van transportation services. Up next, we have RFQ 550, chemical route application for sanitary sewer systems.
Yep. And we have no bids submitted.
We have no bids submitted for RFQ 550, chemical route application for sanitary sewer systems. And then, and I think this is our final Am I right? RFQ 555 for the Bureau of Procurement, polyvinyl chloride, PVC, pipes and fittings.
We have no bids submitted.
And we have no bids submitted for RFQ 555, polyvinyl chloride, PVC pipes and fittings. And that was our final planned opening for today. Our next bid opening is on 5/15, thank you. I'm forgetting what day it is anymore. May 15th, 2024 is our next bid opening at 12 noon as usual, and we thank you all for tuning in. And thanks, team.